Greetings, Alfred. The Fat Controller works his engines hard. They are very proud of belonging to the Fat Controller's Railway on the island of Sodor. But they were also proud of the railways they come from. Ryan is from the Great Northern Railway. Edward is from the Furness Railway. Gordon is from the London and North Eastern Railway and thinks no engine is better than the engines from the LNER. And Duck is from the Great Western Railway and does things the Great Western way. One day, a ceremony has been opened at the station outside Knapford Sheds. The other engines were excited, and the Fat Controller had just came to the sheds to pick an engine who was strong enough to do the job. The engines were even more excited when the Fat Controller came to the sheds, especially Gordon and James, who was hoping the Fat Controller would choose them. But the Fat Controller chose Henry. "You are just the engine I need to pull to take the passengers to the ceremony at the big station at Knapford Sheds." "Yes, sir," said Henry happily, and he puffed out of the sheds excited. Gordon and James were cross. Now they're wishing they want to collect the passengers to the ceremony too. Moments after, Henry back to his coaches and the passengers at Wellsworth Station, who had been waiting Henry the whole time, got in quickly just in time. Henry was waiting impatiently. "Hurry up!" he shouted. "Don't fuss," said his driver. You have to be patient. The guard hasn't even blown his whistle yet." And indeed he hasn't. The guard came out of the office with a sandwich in his hand, and he blew the whistle, and Henry steamed out of Wellsworth Station in a hurry. Soon Henry approached the bridge. He was already in such a hurry that he didn't want to be late for the ceremony. "Slow down, old boy," cautioned his driver. You'll be having a crash before you know it." Henry took no notice. He even didn't want to be late for the ceremony, but he was already in too much of a hurry. Soon Henry approached the hill and went down. Then there was trouble. Paxton was shunting some trucks full of food into a berth outside Knapford Sheds so that the workmen from inside can take the food to the station. But then there was trouble. "Somebody help!" cried Henry. His driving fireman jumped clear, but Henry crashed into some trucks full of food that it went flying everywhere. Ryan and Duck, who had seen everything, just laughed. Poor Henry didn't feel happy at all. When the Fat Controller came out, he was very cross. "My food!" he shouted. "I mean, Henry, you have caused confusion and delay," he said. "Now you will have to go to the works again," he shouted. "Yes, sir, sorry, sir," said Henry sadly. Moments after, Henry was sent to the works to be mended for the next few days on top of some two flatbed trucks. The ceremony was over, and when Henry was away for the next few days, the Fat Controller that night promised the engines that a new engine would help with the extra work. He then turned to Emily with some bad news. I would like you to pull the flying kipper tomorrow, he said. But what about my goods, sir? Asked Emily. The new engine shall do it, he said. What's the new engine's name, sir? Asked Spencer. The Fat Controller paused for a moment. The engine's number is 98462, but his real name is Alfred. I hope you'll all give him a warm welcome tomorrow, he said, and he walked away. When the Fat Controller left, the other engines could see Gordon looked cross. Did he say 98462? Yes, Gordon, said James. Why? I remember working with him before I first came to Sodor. He was a big show-off and was very rude. I hope he isn't, thought Edward. But he was wrong. Hurry up, driver, grumbled Alfred. You know LNER engines are never late. Drive me faster. All right, Alfred, said his driver. Alfred had given his driver and fireman a rough time on his first journey. At last, Alfred arrived at the station where the Fat Controller was waiting. Welcome to Sodor, Alfred, said the Fat Controller. Thank you, sir, Alfred said in a deep-toned voice. It is quite an honour to be in your railway. I'm pleased to hear that, said the Fat Controller. Then Alfred had a question. Are there any duties you would like me to do, sir? He asked. Jobs? Said the Fat Controller suspiciously. What? But you've just arrived. We have a saying in the LNER, sir, said Alfred. Never go too easy on the newcomers. Very well, said the Fat Controller. Your first job is to take Emily's goods train to Barrow in Furness. Right away, sir, Alfred said, and he huffed away. That night, Alfred began doing all his jobs without getting back to the shed for a rest. He enjoyed this. He was going faster down the line and was doing his jobs the LNER way. It was daylight when Alfred arrived at Wellsworth Station. He was feeling satisfied with all the work he had been doing last night. The Fat Controller came out of the office at Wellsworth Station for a job for Alfred to do. I would like you to pull the flying kipper today, he said. Yes, sir, said Alfred. I'll do that right away, but I must take on coal and water first, he said. An LNER engine like me must never break down. Very well, said the Fat Controller. Off you go then. Right away, sir, said Alfred happily, and chuffed off to have some coal and water for the journey. Moments after, Alfred was taking on water outside Knapford sheds. He had already taken on coal and his tender was now filled with water. At last, Alfred had finished his drink and was off to the docks to pull the flying kipper. Gordon was at the station outside Knapford sheds with the express. When he saw Alfred, he ignored him. Gordon was very cross when he saw Alfred. He completely ignored him when he noticed Alfred coming out of Knapford sheds. But Alfred didn't notice Gordon. He was too busy humming whilst going to the docks at Brendam. At last, Alfred arrived at Brendam Docks. He buffered up to the vans, but the flying kipper was not yet ready. Alfred was coupled to the vans, but the fishermen were all in such a hurry that the extra load took a long time, which made Alfred grow very impatient. "Come on," grumbled Alfred. Hurry up, he shouted. The men were already on the job, and a few moments after, the vans were full of fish. The last door banged. The guard showed Alfred's driver the green lamp. Alfred was ready to go with the flying kipper. "Well, it's about time," he grumbled. "Come on, you lot," he said to the vans. All right, don't fuss, grumbled the vans. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Gordon was still feeling cross. He kept thinking about seeing Alfred outside Knapford's sheds a minute ago. He was still very cross. "I'll show Alfred how strong and fast I am than him," he thought. He went racing up a hill and through the suspension bridge. Gordon was making good time, but then there was trouble. Gordon approached the hill and could feel the heavy coaches pulling against him. Gordon slowed down and stopped. He couldn't even get up the hill. With that, Gordon was stuck. "Bother!" grumbled Gordon. "I can't be late," he said. "This is silly." "Don't worry," said his driver. "I'll call for help." With that, Gordon's driver and fireman ran out of Gordon's cab to find the telephone. Moments after, Gordon's driver and fireman finally returned when Gordon heard a familiar whistle. It was Alfred coming out of the tunnel with the flying kipper. When he saw Gordon, he stopped. 98462? I mean Alfred, shouted Gordon. "Can you help me over the hill, please?" "I wish I could, old boy," said Alfred, "but as you can see, I'm a little busy right now. Remember, LNER engines don't need help from outsiders. I'm sure you're more than capable of getting yourself up the hill, old boy," said Alfred. "Goodbye," and he puffed away. Gordon was very cross as he watched Alfred go with the flying kipper. Gordon had been stuck up the hill with the express for hours, but not for long. Another familiar whistle sounded. "It's Henry!" shouted his driver. "It can't be," said Gordon, but to his surprise, it was. At last Henry came. The men at the works had mended him well, and he was ready to rescue Gordon and the express. "Heard you got stuck up your hill," said Henry jokingly. Gordon knew that voice. "Can you get me up the hill, please?" he said. "Alfred came up here a minute ago and he refused to help me," he said. "Please, Henry, my passengers won't be happy." Henry smiled. "I'll be happy to help." At last, Henry buffered up to the express, and with his mighty strength, the big green engine pushed Gordon and the express up the hill. Henry pushed and pushed, and with all his might, he was able to push Gordon and the express to the top of the hill. Gordon and the express were heavy, but Henry was determined to give pushing Gordon and the express up the hill the trial he wanted for his return. "You can do it, old boy!" shouted his driver, and at last Gordon went down the hill, leaving Henry behind. Henry had been left behind breathless, and Gordon had also forgot to say thank you to him. Henry smiled. He was happy to be back from the works. That night, Henry came back to the sheds feeling very happy coming home. When Gordon saw Henry, he was very happy to see him again. "Thank you for getting me up the hill," Gordon said to Henry. "We're glad to have you with us again." Henry smiled. "It was nothing," he said. "Shall we form an alliance? You help me and I help you." Gordon couldn't agree more. I'm very happy to say so," he said. "This alliance is worth exception. I thank you for making me feel better when you knew I needed your help." "You're welcome," said Henry. "Don't mention it." With that, Gordon and Henry were happy to be with each other again. They started chatting all night until the two big engines went happily to sleep.